you doing? I've been asked to speak on a passage, well, not a particular passage, but anything of my own choosing, and I want to share with you a passage from Luke, chapter 8, verse 22 to 25, and it's a familiar passage. Is Jesus calms a storm. And it says this, verse 22, it says, "One day he got into a boat with his disciples, and he said to them, 'Let us go across to the other side of the lake.' So they set out. And as they sailed, he fell asleep. And a windstorm came down on the lake, and they were filling with water and were in danger. And they went and woke him, saying, 'Master, Master, we are perishing.' And Jesus awoke, and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they ceased, and there was a calm. He said to them, 'Where is your faith?' And they were afraid, and they marveled, saying to one another, 'Who then is this, that he commands even winds and water, and they obey him?'" This is a passage that I felt very impacted recently. It has definitely impacted me when I heard this message approximately a year ago from my pastor back in Sydney. And I hope that it's life-changing for you, because it changed my life dramatically. And there's only one message I want to bring out today, and that is, the Lord is in your boat. The Lord, the maker of heaven and earth, the giver of life, is in your boat. He has set you to sail across the storms of life. And I take great comfort in that. And that's the only message I want to bring out today. And those storms can look like storms of financial trouble, can look like storms of exhaustion, waves of loneliness. It could look like you could be going through a death of a loved one, or you could be going through some relationship issues, or you could be looking at spiritual dryness, spiritual exhaustion, and you're going through that storm. The storms are relentless, and they keep on coming, even though you don't want it to. So, but I want to give you the reality. The reality is that Jesus, the Lord, is in your boat. And I'm just going to break down the scripture. So it's only 3 or 4 verses. So verse 22 says, "One day he got into a boat with his disciples, and he said to them, 'Let us go across to the other side of the lake.' So they set out." So pretty much what's happening here is that Jesus has asked the disciples to come to the lake, to go and sail out across the lake, knowing full well that there is going to be a storm. He knows that there's going to be a storm coming up, but the point to remember is that he initiated the storm. He initiated the journey of the disciples into the storm. So that's the first point. So verse 23, "And as they sailed, he fell asleep," which is very convenient. "And a windstorm came down on the lake, and they were filling with water and were in danger." So I want you to remember, the disciples are not wimps. They're not little men. They are fishermen. They are fishermen. They know the waters well, and they know when they are in danger. So when they sail out into the water, it's not just small splashes of waves. They're not just, "Oh, we're just walking a bit, we're in danger." These are huge, massive mother of waves here, okay? So that, just give you that understanding there. In verse 24, it says, "And they went and woke him, saying, 'Master, Master, we are perishing.' And he awoke and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they ceased, and there was a calm." So I want you not only to remember the initiative of Jesus, of your journey into the storm, I want you to remember, behold the greatness of God. Behold the greatness of God. So, just picture the scene. Huntington Beach. We're on Huntington Beach. Jesus calls you to go through the lake. And you go on the boat, and pretty much it is storming. It is dark clouds. There is waves, giant waves. There are rain falling. There is wind gushing through. And your hero, Jesus, is asleep. And I'm like, okay, That's great. We need to wake him up. What do we do, Jesus? What do we do? So, and what happens here? Jesus looks up into the storm and he says to the storm, "Be quiet. Be quiet." And I find that absolutely amazing. I find it encouraging to know that in an instant that Jesus can stop the storm. Just like that. This is the Lord who's in their boat, the powerful Lord who is in their boat, and who is in your boat as well. So, and I wanted to keep in mind, this is also the Lord who created the sun and created the earth, and he has placed it intentionally and strategically in such a way that there is life on earth. He has placed it intentionally where that, even on an angle, the axis, to a point where we don't burn by day and we don't freeze by night. He has created the oceans. He has grabbed the Atlantic, the Pacific, and he can put it into the hollows of his hands. He can grab the sands of California and he can grab the sands of Australia and put it on the scales. And I find that just mind-boggling. Verse 25, and he said to them, "Where is your faith?" So, I know we can sort of take that question. That seems a little harsh. That's a little harsh to ask, where is your faith? But I want you to look back at the passage in its context and see it as Jesus is not asking the question to judge. He's not judging you. He's not rubbing your nose saying, "Where's your lack of faith?" He's actually asking the question on the back of divine setup. The divine setup is this. The divine setup is the storm, and he's asking the question to strengthen them, to equip them, and to care for them in their faith. To strengthen and to equip and to care for them in their faith. And that's essentially, Jesus is discipling the disciples. He is discipling the disciples. And he's telling them that they do not need to fear in the storm. They do not need to fear when you are going through the trials of life. So I know in Hebrews 13 verse 5, it says this, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." Matthew 28 verse 20, he gives out the Great Commission and he says, "I will be with you to the end of the age." Psalm 46, and this is a verse that I think everyone should memorize. "God is my refuge, he is my strength, a very present help in trouble." A very present help. Not just a help, he's a very present. He will get into your storm and be in there with you in your boat. So the Lord is in your boat, the powerful, the maker of heaven and earth, who initiated your journey into the storm. He gives strength. We need strength. He gives you grace when you need grace. He gives you joy when you need joy. He gives you help when you need help. So what do we take out of this? How do we apply this to our lives? Well, what I think in this passage is that Jesus is telling us to seize the storms in our life. Whatever you're going through, seize it, because God's using that as an opportunity. God's using that as an opportunity for you to strengthen your faith. That's what's happening. He is saying, you do not need to fear. I will never leave you nor forsake you. I will be with you to the end of the age. I am your refuge and strength, and I will be a very present help in trouble. That's what he's saying. So just stand firm and trust that Jesus is trustworthy. He can do all things. All things. And I want you to refuse anxiety, refuse fear, refuse unbelief. Whatever you may have during your storm, and trust in the promise of Scripture. So take courage that the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth, is in your boat.
Yeah.